So I'm going to talk about what I think of as esoteric, or maybe occultic, physics and math. And the reason why I use the word esoteric or occultic before them is to expand your mind of what these fields are capable of a little bit. They are essentially common physics and maths, but thought of in a new way or seen in a much more holistic perspective. Now, physics we can obviously understand as the science essentially of the physical and the energetic world. And because we are not corporate scientists, we don't have to pretend as though the spiritual world and spiritual energies and all these kinds of things are not measurable and they are not real and all these things. We don't have to pretend that. We can use physics, its devices and such, to understand spirituality and spiritual energy. The same way we can use it to understand physical, material things as well. All of these have to be encompassed under physics and what we would call, the occultic physics. Everything in existence in this world is under physics. Of course, the four common elements of earth and water being the physical and air and fire being the energetic. These all exist within space, and the products of space usually are thought of as electromagnetism. If you look into things like how there is kind of no delay with electromagnetism, the same way that there is a delay with the voice, with sound, because it travels through air, but electromagnetism supposedly travels through space itself, 3D geometrical space, which everything is in. Apparently it has no delay and has interesting properties. So that's one thing to think. So you can probably understand what physics is, right? It's understanding Earth, which is physical structures, bridges, all these things, different properties of materials, metals, plastics. Plastics, I found out today, is basically just a resin. It's just a resin, right? That's all it is, really. Which is fascinating. Some other plastics are a bit more like a rubber. So a rubber and a resin. And I mean, rubber is technically, isn't it just a boiled resin? So I guess you could say it's just a mineral resin that they just shape into all kinds of shapes. Very fascinating. And then it's got different properties of hardness and softness and different colors and visibilities and such. And again, this is physics. This is all physics of the physical characteristics. And of course we can then move into energetic physics of air and gases, and there's all these kinds of interesting things. And then we can move more into interesting stuff like flames and electromagnetism. And electromagnetism is much more occultic, it's much more spiritual. It gets into the force of God and nature, light, energy, heat, sound, all these things. What then is mathematics? Of course, common mathematics we think of as numbers and geometry. It's a way to count and to calculate, to almost like organize and divide and structure in a way. And the expansion of mathematics into the occultic realms is when we start to look at archetypes. And of course, archetypes are similarities, similar figures. For example, the sun can be condensed into an archetype of the sun, and gold is related to this art, or it falls under this category. It's basically a category, a similar category. Gold falls under it. The color kind of like a bright yellow, sunlight, warmth, honey, the lion, courage, the soul. All these things are related to the heart. They are an archetype. If you can understand that archetypes are essentially mathematics, we're just dividing reality into a pizza. We're cutting the pizza up into how many ever pieces you want. If you cut the pizza in half, again, this is geometry. You cut a circle in half, you can calculate this. We've created two archetypes, positive, negative, male, female, earth and sky, good and bad, white and black, red and blue, soft and hard, etc. We now have the power to categorize, and this is something that modern science, modern corporate science lacks, because to understand archetypes, you have to have awakened a certain part of yourself, which is very interesting and starts to transform and change your life once you do. Once we apply archetypes to physics, then we get the whole picture. Then we learn how to divide and calculate and separate properly. And language is related, it falls under this esoteric mathematics. Symbols are the way to write down and describe numbers and letters, right? And words and such. Words are these it's like a separation of things. We condense ideas and physical things or non-physical things or conceptual things and such into words, right? The word orange is a symbolic representation of an orange. It is the archetypal, or what we could think the kind of occultic mathematic description of the physics, the occultic physics apple. Or did I say orange? Like the fruit orange, right? So we have a physical fruit orange, an actual tangible thing which exists. And then we have the name for the orange. So the physical tangible thing is the physics. The name for the orange is part of what we are calling the esoteric mathematics. We have one single orange. Again, this is part of the maths. Because in physical reality, one orange doesn't really mean anything. I mean, it kind of does, there is technically one orange, but it's just this orange colored sphere sitting on the grass or in your hand or something. It's just this object in space, right? But if we use the math, we have the word, we have the idea that it is one singular orange. It's not two oranges or three oranges. We don't have two oranges in our hand or in each hand or whatever. Maybe we do, but for this example, we don't. Similarly, where the orange is in space, X, Y, Z coordinates, meaning like forwards, backwards, left, right, up, down, where it actually is positioned in your hand, on your lap, on the ground, again, it physically has a location, and it is there in actual reality. And in the more mental space, so psychological mental space, it mathematically has a coordinate. This is how everything on a computer works. You have to use this math. Computers are the world. Basically, it's a mathematical tool. almost like an occultic mathematical tool, but we've symbolized everything. We've symbolized colors, words, pixels and such. We can make any picture, any three-dimensional object, any color, any sound. You can simulate reality in an archetypal way, in a mathematical way, in a word way, through a computer. So it is the tool of creation, of essentially this occultic mathematical tool. What then would the physics tool be? That's a good question. I would assume the best thing I can, the best stab at it I could take is to say the laboratory or the workshop. If you have a really good workshop full of lots of tools, you can make whatever you want, right? You can test whatever you want. If you've got a kitchen where you've got water and fire, and maybe some kind of air, gases, whatever, like a laboratory, you can test reality in whatever way you want. You've got electronics tools and all this kind of stuff to test electricity, etc. So maybe getting more into like a practical thing. People have temperaments, which is their temperature. So physically, a person, depending on the temperature of the person, and usually the temperature at which they live around, like hot countries, people are more social. They want to talk, they want to be around others more. They get angrier more, they're louder. Cold weather people are quiet, they want to be alone, they respect personal space. They don't want to bother you as much. They're not as social. These physical things influence people, right? And everything, it's top to down, top to bottom. So the top influences the bottom, so to speak. Then of course the mathematics of the words, the division is to understand the archetypes of hot and cold people and hot and cold places, etc. So you can start applying this to everything. And one important thing is, of course, geometry. Forwards, backwards, left, right, up, down. Basic coordinate points. These are all you got. If you're trying to drive a vehicle, you're not going to drive it into the fifth dimension, right? Unless you've got some crazy tech. You're gonna just go forwards and backwards and left and right if it's a car. Maybe you go up and down if it's a really big bump or you screw up pretty badly and you fly into the air, right? If it's like a plane, you can go up and down now, right? That's all you got though. You don't have anything more. There are no more dimensions. You've figured them all out. And this categorization of dimensions is the math. It is geometry, right? And the geometry is a characteristic of space, which is the physical part of it, right? These are like the two master sciences. See, physics is the master of the world. Mathematics, or what I think of as also occultism, because occultism is more understandable to understand that's archetypes and geometry and math and language and all these things. So occultism or math or esoteric mathematics, you can expand your perspective on what it means. It also means language, is the master of this physics. Do you understand? And you think, what is the master of occultism? Who knows? Maybe it does. Maybe there is no master, or maybe it's cyclical, where physics is its master, right? Because it dictates what words can we have. We can only have words which have some kind of use or function or existence. You can make up a random sound, but it's not really useful, I guess, or who knows? Maybe it does have a meaning, but you just don't know it yet. So anyway, I'll leave it with that. hopefully you understand kind of what I mean and learn how to apply it to life. Anyway, have a good day and feel free to check the links in the description for social commercial stuff. Goodbye.